Hello friends, it is that time again with that Erickson. It is September 24th, 2017. So I know it's been a while since I brought a video to you guys, and that is partly due to my work not being able to play a lot on the weekends. So also in terms of content, we haven't had much new other than what we're going to talk about today and some new information about harvesting, which I'll cover in another video. So campaign worlds are still a bit empty, and it's hard to get some footage on my time, but we do have sieging in place, and that's something that I also want to cover in the future. That being said, anytime big news is on the horizon, I want to put a video together. So we do got some big news here on something that has been discussed at length, and I've covered it in some of my previous videos. It involves the training system and the VIP system. So we're going to quickly go through an overview of the old system and see how the new one compares. So previously we would have three main trees: combat, crafting, and exploration, and you could only select one of these. Then you would have the class trees, which were broken down into categories like tank, support, and things like that. There you can choose a specific class to train, and you can only train one as a free-to-play player and up to three if you were a VIP player. More on that later. Training was time-based, and the time would progressively get longer, and the old system was on an arbitrary point system of up to about 100 points. This has been recently removed in favor of like a similar pip system. A pip is like a combat point for those who are familiar with WoW, but it's just an arbitrary level of where you hit thresholds. So the 5 pips here would represent the same amount of time that it was for a 1 to 20 point gain in the old system. So now you wouldn't see those incrementally small gains that nobody cared about. This should have hitting a milestone of a pip feel a little bit more rewarding, which was one of the concerns I covered in my past skill video, which you can find in the card above. The skill progression of prerequisites prior were pretty harsh, and you needed to points in the full tree before you would be able to continue. This is being removed, and it seems to be in a favor of only achieving 3 to 4 pips before you can move on to a further tree. So you can see this has made some nice improvements. However, the concern was the VIP system, which is Crowfall's monthly optional subscription, much like other MMOs have nowadays. And this would cause you to feel pigeonholed into a particular style, such as combat, crafting, or exploration. You could typically only be really good at one and mediocre in the others. So the class trees forced you into a very early choice, which took away the concept of freedom, which is what they wanted when developing the game. For example, if I was a free-to-play player and I spent months powering up my crafting skill line, it would be really rare and kind of detrimental if I decided to switch midstream to harvesting. This led people to consider the value of VIP was nearly useless. People would rather have 2 or more accounts as free-to-play players, which would allow these accounts to have a main focus of the big 3. Once again, this really hampered the ability for Artcraft to make a buck on Crowfall with the current VIP system, which will most likely be the driving revenue along with microtransactions. I think everyone knew that this seemed to be bad, so I'm happy to say that they have announced some nice, sweet changes. So also with the removal of the archetype system was the announcement of the race class combos, which we've covered, and a new skill tree which was added, which is race. So now we got 3 skill trees. They call them skill spheres. So profession, race, class. As a free-to-play player, you'll be able to train one of each of these 3 spheres. So while a VIP player can train 2 in each sphere. This seems to be a big benefit, and this really pushes a benefit to the side of VIP due to the fact that you can only train 2. Not only can you train 2 at once, but you can do this on one character. So now you can be a combat/crafter or a combat gatherer if you choose. So this will give the VIP more activities, but they're not necessarily going to be better at a specific activity than a free-to-play player. So child trees do not require full completion of the parent tree to continue deeper, as I covered before. There will be a method also for free-to-play players to obtain VIP tickets. Think of it as an in-game means to obtain VIP status without having to pay the $15 or whatever they decide the price point to be. More on that as we know more, obviously. So now the race and class trees also have a more logical breakdown to them, so that you can keep the rewards of a previous training and not feel like it was wasted. For example, you start in combat basics, and then you decide to specialize in supports. all the training in the basics apply to all the classes. The skills from the support tree are only going to carry over to classes that fall into the support hierarchy. And then if you want to specialize even further, let's say you pick a specific support such as Cleric, then you would specialize in solely Cleric, and those points would only go to Cleric. So before this, there was a small thought on the change to VIP, where VIP would allow you to queue up a skill to start training after it's stopped. This kind of caused a little bit of an uproar. It was not available for free-to-play players. This made free-to-play players rightfully upset that they needed to wake up, possibly in the middle of the night, to start a new skill just to feel on par with the VIP players and not lose any time, because any second wasted would be possibly you falling behind those VIP players, even if you started at the same date as on launch day, for example. So Artcraft, I believe, realized the system was damaging, and they now have a new idea, which is called the time bank system. So each tree has its own time bank. The time will begin to accumulate and bank when you have completed a skill. So a free-to-play player can accumulate up to 24 hours of banked time. So basically, as a free-to-play, as long as you log in once per day, you should be okay. VIP players, on the other hand, will have up to 30 days of time bank, which is the monthly subscription, which makes sense. So you can use this bank time only in that specific tree to apply points to that specific tree. So for example, if you completed a skill in crafting and a day later you log in and you decide, maybe I don't want to continue with crafting. Unfortunately, you cannot. You have to use that accumulated bank time in that specific tree. Now here's where I think it's really cool. It does not stop there for the time banks. These are going to be converted into skill tomes. Now one thing to note is that this is not going to be something at launch. It's going to be a post-launch mechanism for players to catch up, like a catch-up mechanic. New players coming in always have the same argument. If I'm brand new, I pick up Crowfall, let's say a year from now. How am I going to compete with players who have a year's worth of timed bank training? This is a similar problem that Eve runs into, but they also have ways around that. So this is where skill tomes come in. So basically, a player is going to be able to bank some of their time, convert it into a tome, and then sell it to players as a way to catch up. So I can bank, let's say, 2 days worth of time in combat if I am a VIP. And then I can create a tome, and then a person can come in and buy a 2-day worth of time in combat. And boom, all of a sudden that person has converted from a person who just started today to a person that started 2 days later. Now this is just a rough example. I'm going to cover some of the examples that actually came from the Crowfall site, covering a few use case scenarios. So the first one is a non-VIP. So let's say player A is training leather armor skill in the combat basics tree from rank 2 to 3. So the training completes naturally due to the time, and then player A has not logged in to adjust his training. The system automatically moves his active training for this slot to the time bank for the combat basics skill tree. So player A logs in 5 hours later and has accumulated 300 minutes, 5 hours, in the time bank. Then player A selects leather armor skill training to go from rank 3 to 4, and he's offered to apply that 300 minutes of accumulated time towards the training of rank 4. Okay, makes sense. Let's go ahead and take up a look at the use case of a VIP player. So let's say player B is training leather armor in the combat basics tree to go from 2 to 3. He decides to stop training leather armor and selects the time bank of the combat basics skill tree. The system begins to accumulate minutes in this time bank. So player B logs in 4 days later, having accumulated 4 times 24 times 60 minutes, which is 5,760 minutes in the time bank. He then clicks on the time bank and elects to create a tome of combat basics. So this is, as I mentioned before, a way to sell the time you've accumulated. Remember, this is not going to be in at launch. It's a catch-up mechanic. I'm sure it might get changed before the end of the beta period. Let's see. We don't know where that's going to go. So then let's just say that 3 days worth of minutes is removed from his time bank, and it only gives him 1,440 minutes remaining. And then a tome of combat basics is added to his account. Alright, so that's an example of someone taking some time, not using all of it, but creating a tome out of some of it. Let's just say now let's look at the redemption of a tome. So player C trades a crafted weapon to player B for the Tome of Combat Basics. Player C currently has completed 25% of the combat basics skill tree. Player C currently has 40 minutes accumulated in the combat basics time bank. The player C then uses the Tome of Basics by right-clicking it from their inventory, and player C is informed that if redeeming, the number of total minutes, 4,320 in this case, stored in the tome will be reduced by 25%, player C completion percentage for the skill tree. This results in 3,240 minutes being added to the time bank. Player C agrees, and the tome is deployed. So guys, what do you think? Does this help? Is it a step in the right direction? As always, we are still in pre-alpha, so obviously a lot is subject to change. We have already seen 3 major revamps of the skills VIP race combo so far in a short time span. But I will want to keep you guys informed and hear your opinions. So I think this is for sure a good step in the right direction. It tends to push down the need to have multiple accounts. Obviously, having multiple accounts will always be big, but now it's not as necessary as it was before. So that's it, guys. Thanks for sticking with me in this slow period. I've released an update on my channel for the direction of Crowfall. It's always my #1, but I think I'm going to start supplementing some video and some streaming time with some phone games that I'm interested in. Be sure to check out that video. Make sure you leave your feedback, anything that you guys might want to see or hear. As always, if you liked the video, be sure to like and subscribe. Click the little bell to be notified of any new videos coming out. YouTube has also announced the new sponsorship program, which I'll cover in my channel update video, but now you can sponsor the channel. I plan to stream more, so that would be beneficial to you. If that's something you're interested in, check it out. Anyway, guys, this has been That Erickson, and until next time, take care, friends.